Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Fahd Dawood. I talk about real estate in Dubai, internationally, your and my life, and our path to financial bliss. Look, we're in interesting times, right? So we had the corona situation, we went into the depths of the outbreak, and we're kind of coming out the world over and in Dubai with some anticipation that perhaps there's going to be a resurge in autumn. I hope not. The vaccines coming through. The UAE is one of the only countries, I think, that the vaccines in stage 3 of trials in coordination with China, which is good news, right? So if we get vaccine coming out soon, hey, hooray, great. We're on our path to economic and otherwise recovery, great. But I get asked this question a lot, and this goes back to one of the videos I've made about what do you do with bad investments, right? Look, none of us are free from making bad investments, right? So if you look at the billionaire investors such as Ray Dalio and some of the other big investors who are big, massive billionaire players in the US stock market or the equities market the world over, they always say we've got our good investments and we've got our not so good investments and we've got the absolute dogs of investments that they've made throughout their careers, year on year sometimes, and they're good have weighed out the bad investments, which is why they're in the positive, right? So it's fair, it's okay. A lot of real estate investors, some of them with large, massive portfolios, sometimes make a bad investment. And sometimes real estate investors with smaller portfolios also make bad investments. And that's okay. I think the more important thing is what do you learn from that investment and how do you apply those lessons to your future? Because that's a valuable lesson. If you get that, then you're on your way to success. Okay, so essentially speaking, what do you do with bad investments? Now, I've been getting a lot of shout outs, questions, comments from people who've invested in the Dubai market or internationally, and they want to know what should be their next step because, hey, their first step was a misstep. They essentially put money into an investment that they shouldn't have. I had this one, I shouldn't laugh at this because it's not good, it's not funny because real money is involved and real pain is involved. I've got this one investor of mine who reached out to me. Actually, he's not an investor, he's somebody who's looking to invest. He reached out to me and he said, look, I got hustled. He literally used the word hustled into investing with this developer. And then he said, well, then I invested in this other brand name big developer that's well known for large, amazing communities around the world, especially in Dubai. But the property is not ready, so I'm not earning any income. So I kind of feel hustled again. I think I made a mistake again. So he's going from mistake to mistake. And I'm going to say to him, you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. If you spend some time on my YouTube channel alone, you're going to find gems, nuggets, perhaps information that other investors have utilized, and I've learned from a lot of investors that would help you along this path of journey. And if you want a structured process on how to make investments, then there is in the description the real estate secrets map. I make it very easy for you to follow this map. It's a secret script, so to speak. It goes the easy part, which is the starting part, the middle part, which is kind of like the hard part where you're shortlisting properties, and then the pro part, which is where you're negotiating and closing the transaction. So if you want a structure, follow that. But here's my 2 words of advice for people who are getting into the property game or already have large portfolios. Number 1, 7 out of 10 investors I personally seen generally lose money. Now, this is not just unique to Dubai, it's globally applicable. And the reason it is because they move in with little or less information, they don't do their homework, they don't use an expert, they speculate, over leverage, XYZ. There's a video down here where I talk about how 7 out of 10 investors lose money. And if you want to really get more information, happy to have a look, right? But I want to talk about if you do have a bad portfolio or if you've got some bad investments, what do you do? So this question was going around in my mind for a couple of weeks, and I just did a you could say a portfolio analysis on a very large fund per se. They had at one time hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the Dubai market, and I just did an analysis on one of their properties and what they should be doing going forward. It's a large holding with tons of assets with bulk units in one specific area. And I went back to my business school days, and I remember, there's something called the BCG Matrix. The Boston Consulting Group has a matrix. I'm going to show it to you, but I'll get my my marketing team to actually show it to you properly. Here's one of the this is a report that I wrote for them. But essentially speaking, the Boston Consulting Matrix, if my team will show it to you now, actually asks companies to divide their assets or their products that they're taking to the market into 4 major categories, right? So you've got the cash cows, you've got the stars, you've got the question marks, and then you've got the absolute pets, the dogs of a product, right? So if you're applying this to a regular company, for instance, I think Unilever or Procter & Gamble, I don't know which one has Tide as a laundry detergent, but Tide, I remember learning about this in business school. Tide for that company is this massive cash cow, because it's kind of like established itself as a brand that's recognized for getting your clothes clean at a cheap or a good decent price. They don't have to build a lot of brand recognition amongst the people out there to get them and convince them that they should be buying this product. For Nike, I would venture that Michael Jordan and the shoes that Michael Jordan produces and releases and markets with Nike are right up there with Tide for Procter & Gamble. I think it's Procter & Gamble or Unilever, because a Michael Jordan shoe just sells, right? Because Michael Jordan was so well known. So it's a cash cow, right? Cash cows are products which you essentially can just milk for money. They're not going to grow further, right? So, may God bless Michael Jordan with a healthy life. But at some stage, the shoe's going to start getting less popular, right? Especially as he starts getting older and is less in the news and so on and so forth. Similarly, to Tide, there's going to be more competitors coming in and chipping away at its market share. So at some stage, it's going to either have to reinvest to grow and rebrand, or it's going to die out. So what companies do is just take cash out of it and invest it, right, into other areas, which is great, right? So now you're with me on this example of what a cash cow is. Question marks are essentially products which don't have clear route to growth, right? So you don't know if they're going to they could have high growth and high share, but you don't know. They could turn into dogs, and dogs are essentially products which they're gonna die a natural death, and you should let them die because there's nothing really you can do with them, right? Stars are products which will go straight up to the sky, re-establish you as this preeminent company. And then dogs are essentially speaking those products which you should really kill off, right? Now, if you apply this kind of mentality to your portfolio, I think you would be able to easily subdivide or subcategorize your property portfolio into these 4 categories. So you've got the cash cows, easy money, good. You don't have to do a lot for the upkeep and maintenance. You've got the stars, which have real potential to grow. And then you've got these question marks who are like, will they become stars, or will they become dogs, and should they just die, right? You should just sell these assets. And then dogs of an asset are assets which are bad, right? You should really get rid of them. So I'm not going to name this client, obviously. I'm not going to name the specific place, but I did a full report for them, right? So I did a full report that essentially allows them to make a concerted, knowledge-driven, informed decision. And this is essentially what had some of the key highlights from my report, right? I talked about the master development. I told them, look, this master development is kind of like the lost child of Dubai now. We're going to have to wait for the next boom time for this master development to really pick up. Until then, it's going to be slow times because even the hotels that were supposed to get delivered over there have been put on a back burner now, right? Okay. I talked to them about general rental declines because no matter what you do, you can never fight the law of supply and demand, okay? Let's face it, Dubai has had some job losses during the corona situation. People have left, and over the next 2 years, we're going to have people moving from Sharjah and Ajman to Dubai to take up the excess inventory, but it's not going to be done super quick. So I told them, look, really realistically expect a 10, 20, 30% rental decline. So this asset that you're holding in this place, know and be ready that your rents are going to be going down for the next 2 years minimum, right? Talked about the property surplus, right? Again, you can't fight the law of supply and demand. If there's a property surplus coming in Dubai, hey, you know what? You have to face reality and understand that your property is going to be competing with other properties for the same limited amount of tenants. I talked about their particular properties in that area and the tons of construction that's going around that place, right? So when you've got tons of construction going around that place or the property that you own, it's going to affect your property negatively. Now, this is something that you need to pay attention to. For instance, I've got 2 examples that I can run into, right? If you've got a property, like for instance, in Dubai, that ends up facing a unique situation, okay? For instance, a school opens up nearby. Now, schools are great because a lot of people want to live there, but also note that morning time and afternoon times, the traffic's not that great, okay? If you've got a property that is, for instance, you know, this can happen in Dubai as a country where something comes up which is like, you know, where there's a lot of noise disturbance, right? So construction is one example. This is going to cause you to lose out on tenants, and people aren't going to want to buy property. And sometimes noise can be of a permanent nature and it might not be very productive. It could be a restaurant that's very noisy that's opening up right next door and overlooks your apartment, right? So these are things that you need to really watch out for. The other thing that I pointed out to them is, you know, this is very common in Dubai where an apartment building gets built up, but because it's part of a master development, they are dependent on the master developer putting in appropriate roads that lead up to the building and out of the building. Now, this is really important, especially for luxury buildings. You need if it's a luxury building, you need a luxury driveway, right? It doesn't have to have a valet standing to take your car keys, but you need a luxury driveway for people to drive up, you know, your guests to come up. And obviously when you're reselling the property, that driveway or that entrance to the grand lobby makes a lot of sense. Now, unfortunately, this building, the lobby, as grand as it might be, has absolutely zero utilization because the road network in front of it is shut off. There's a dead end. So anybody who wants to come to the building, they've got to take the basement entry. Again, it's not great for reselling an apartment or when you're renting it out, because all the tenants, obviously, they notice that, right? If you're going to pay top dollar to live in a certain place, you want your guests, when they come to visit you, know that you paid top dollar. And if they don't feel that, then you don't feel rich and your status is destroyed, right? Okay. I talked about the quality of the building, the actual people who built it. I think they've done some shoddy work. I don't want to get into actual details because then it actually identifies the asset, and I don't want to do that. But there's some massive shoddy work. The homeowners association, which is taking care of the building, is lagging massively. There's chipping on the walls. There's ceilings which are leaking, so there's mold growing. Like the asset's perhaps not as bad as I'm describing, but it's pretty in desperate need of a little bit of somebody with a little bit of mind to come in and actually think about how to make things a little bit better, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Maintenance issues, they own a lot of apartments there, and I know from the person managing the property that there's tons of maintenance issues there, which is just going to keep increasing, right? So you start thinking that this really is a dog of an asset. Obviously, I gave them a remedy as well. Like, okay, here's the thing I saw. Like, look, you got this X number of millions of dollars of investment in this building. What I'd suggested to them is like, invest more, take over all the retail in the building, take over all the extra other apartments that are for sale, and then turn the apartment building around, right? Just a quick note on the retail mix, okay? In Dubai, if you're buying an apartment and there is retail space downstairs, make sure that the developer is not selling the retail space. This is a side point, but the important thing is if the developer or one person has control of the entire retail shops, then they can bring out a mix that just makes sense, essentially allows for a super retail mix to be present there, and the tenants end of the day benefit from the retail mix. But if the retail shops are sold, then guess what happens? It's everybody to his own. Sometimes people are asking for very high rents, sometimes they're asking for very low rents, not understanding the market scenario. And then when retail shops are empty downstairs a building or a community, it reflects badly, right? Which is why, for instance, in Dubai, Dubai Mall has a rule. If you have a shop in Dubai Mall and you don't open it at a certain time, you get fined, right? You get like a super fine because empty or a closed shop at the end of the day affects the mall's the foot traffic, right? Everybody that's passing by. So let me repeat the Boston Consulting Matrix and how you could apply that to your property portfolio. Okay, cash cows. These are apartments with low growth in the future, but they've got high share. For a property portfolio, these, in my recommendation, would be your apartments in affordable areas of Dubai or anywhere in the world where you've got this large base of working people who are looking to pay and live in decent accommodation. Okay, these are cash cows because they're money-making machines, right? You don't have to do a lot in maintenance. People in the general affordable category aren't very difficult to please. They're not very difficult. They're not very demanding. Give them a little bit of maintenance. Take care of them. They're going to pay, generally speaking. They like to hold down their jobs, and they're going to pay you their rent generally on time because they're afraid of court cases. They don't want the police involved. They don't want to go to jail. Okay, stars, high growth, high share. These are properties where you'd have to invest to really see some real great. I would say that prime areas in Dubai or anywhere in the world, Airbnb. Okay, this is something that would be great. Obviously, you're going to question this during the corona situation. Would Airbnb be great? Maybe, but you'd have to acquire a ton of properties and then invest heavily to get those 5 stars on Airbnb to make sure you've got this steady stream of people who are looking to rent from you, right? Question marks, in my opinion, especially under current circumstances, are luxury assets that you've acquired with rental incomes that are going down, right? I would say that you could again turn this around with short-term rentals on the luxury assets, or maybe a different play so that you make the question marks into stars. But if you can't, then again, they will become dogs and pets and you'd have to get rid of them. Dogs are low share, low growth in the product category, and when it applies to real estate, these are bad assets, right? Costs of maintenance are high, future prospects are bad, you're stuck and dependent on variables that you have no control over, such as the master community or the other people or the homeowners association. Exit from these assets. Do not stick around with these. I did give this client of mine a remedy, such as they should acquire more of the assets and turn the building around, and then maybe wait for 2 or 3 years when prices might be going up so that they can resell. But in the meantime, I totally advise them that they could sell and exit. Okay, hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon. If you want to reach out to me, look, I'm easily reachable on WhatsApp with the number below, or you can in the comment section Look forward to hearing from you. If you want to work one-on-one with me, then it's very specific. There is a fee involved. My experience and advice is free on YouTube, but not one-on-one when you want very specific advice. But if you have questions very general and others can be helped with it, I will allow you to ask me and I'll answer it on YouTube. Ciao for now. See you later. Bye.